Welcome to the Higher Self Podcast. My name is Pete Phil, and I'm here with my business partner, Nat. We're all about helping people become better business people or just become business people. Good morning, Nat.
Good morning, Pete. What are you up to today?
Oh, I am pumped up.
Did you go to the gym or what's going on?
No, I'm so excited. I found the next business for us.
Okay.
So,
I know we always are tempted.
Always looking for new businesses, right? So you're not at this phase yet. I'm at this phase. I got multiple kids at college, right? And when you got kids at college, you're moving them in and out of dorms or homes, apartments,
yeah.
Right. And it's a real pain in the butt because you get all their stuff there, and then 9 months later, you got to take it back, right? And it's just, you got to have enough vehicle space, and it's just, my girls just tend to have so much crap, right? But the deal is you got to deal with all this kind of stuff. So
Right.
I find out that there is a business that helps parents like us and students with their stuff in regards to helping them move out. So
that seems pretty genius.
Yeah, there's a business called Zippy U. And what Zippy U does is delightful. It is awesome, and I'm going to pay for it. Zippy U basically delivers boxes to your kid's dorm room or apartment or whatever it may be. And literally, they fill up the boxes, and then you schedule a time for them to pick up the boxes and all the other stuff, like the little futon and the fridge and the boxes and all that kind of stuff that fills up your car. They pick it up, they take it, they store it safely. And then they basically, when the fall comes on, you got to bring them back. They deliver it right to the new dorm room or the new apartment. Is that not the most awesome business?
Oh, it is making me exhausted just thinking about doing all that. I would love to outsource that.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be a great franchise?
That would be.
Yeah, right. I mean, managing it, franchise management, if you have to manage it, I'm sure there'd be a lot of moving parts. I mean, I know they use like barcodes to track everybody's stuff, and I'm sure there's a lot of systems behind it, but way to take away a lot of pain from parents, because filling up the car with all that stuff and, lugging all that stuff up and down the stairs or in the elevators, it's not so much fun.
Yeah. Do they kind of store it like in a large, like almost like a public storage or something like that?
Yeah, I think we didn't go inspect the space where they take it. I'm just so happy that they're willing to take it and I don't have to carry it and bring it back and store it in our basement and all that kind of stuff. So just a next business for us, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have employees as you manage your franchise. So if it's Zippy U or any business, you got to have employees. And I want to talk today a little bit about finding and keeping employees for your business, right? Or we got to manage our business. We got to manage our franchise. So the idea is, I want to talk a little bit about this idea of how we find and we retain employees during a tough labor market, because we all know it's a tough labor market right now. And I believe that it really depends on you if you're going to find the right people and you're going to retain them. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think you're kind of have to attract the right people, right? It's like you got to find them and attract them.
Yeah, you got to, and that's not easy in today's world. But I believe when we have a franchise, it's just easier. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. It's just an easier process, because a franchise will help you find the key skilled people that you need with set processes and stuff like that. So I thought we'd spend a little time talking about that, and then also talk about, okay, once we get these great people, how do we keep them in this today's very tight market? Sound good?
Sounds good.
So I know you've owned franchises, I've owned franchises. And so as we look at a franchise providing that support so that you're managing that franchise management, you are going to use a series of steps to find those key employees, right? So you think back to when you started your Comfort Keepers franchise, right? The first thing is you got to understand, what kind of employees are you looking for? Who are you looking for?
Exactly. I'm kind of like chuckling because ironically, when I started, it was, I was telling somebody about this the other day, but we actually went to the newspaper store and handed them a piece of paper saying, I want to put this ad in your paper. And, it's like 2 or 3 sentences and costs like $175 and had your like phone number in there. Right.
Yeah.
So the kids at the Ohio State are probably not going to relate to that at all. But
probably not. But so they tell you this is the kind of person you're looking for, the characteristics they have, the type of skills, right?
Yeah.
And then they most of the time have pre-written job descriptions. So the description of this job is blank.
Yeah. With a franchise, I mean, ultimately, like I tell everybody, the franchise, you're paying for a proven product or service and a proven sales and marketing strategy. So the sales and marketing of course, it's how to sell your product or service, right? Whether it's haircuts or flooring or whatever. But that proven sales and marketing strategy actually equally as importantly applies to recruiting. So I think of, recruiting and retaining, all that's sales and marketing in my book.
Yeah.
So as a franchise owner, you can't be you have to be a good team builder. Can't be afraid to, think about recruiting as sales and marketing. And the franchise, what I love about franchising is, not only most franchises that we work with will probably have, 10, 30 plus locations open, maybe hundreds of locations. So they have, they've done this time and time again. And you can also, you have such a substantial owner network. You can reach out to other owners and, see what's working for them too.
Yeah. So they tell you who you're looking for. They kind of give you the job descriptions. They probably have the pre-written job postings, right? What you should do. And they also leverage platforms like Indeed. So they have relationship up with Indeed. So they say, go to Indeed. This is exactly what you put in there. This is the person you're looking for. Yeah.
We always like to say in franchising, a lot of it's an execution game. Like you're executing the business plan, or implementation or execution, however you want to think of it. But you're implementing, the tried and true. Basically, that's what the most successful people are doing.
Yeah, and I've heard of some franchisors will actually be part of the interviews, right? They'll look and say, the applicants come in, they say, we think these 5 are pretty good. And they may even watch the interviews and say, this is the one we think you should hire.
Yeah. You're talking about like the parent company.
Yeah. The franchisor.
I think for key positions, that's probably good. If you're starting to get drilled down to like, where you're hiring many like $10 or $15 an hour employees, I don't know that they're going to get super involved with that. But for key positions, that would be super helpful.
So when we're managing our franchise, that could be your manager that you have in place, or it could be your lead instructor, or that's what you're talking about, kind of the more skilled person that would be in the business.
Yes. It's amazing. I was thinking like customer facing, but then I was like, everybody's ultimately customer facing, right? So it's like, every position is super important. You have to get the right people. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to close the business.
All right. So they tell you who you're looking for, how to find them, right? They actually say, hey, here for the key people, this is, the ones we think you should talk to. They certainly can't tell you which one to hire. But they also provide things like recommended comp packages and stuff like that, a platform so that you as a business don't have to come up with them. They at least they give you a shell of what is competitive to offer somebody.
Yeah. A lot of franchise companies are using kind of that traction process. We've talked about that in a few of our podcasts. It's a management system. But, really a lot of it flows from, writing the right job description. And then each person that works for you, like they're just crystal clear about what they're accountable for. So, whether it's, doing a certain amount of marketing calls, or whether it's making a certain amount of sandwiches or whatever it is, everybody knows, their number basically. And then that helps you tie that to compensation. And then I have found that a lot of companies that do the best is, once people know they're crystal clear on what they're supposed to do, if you can align their compensation with their performance, it's amazing. For example, like with senior care, if like overtime is something that can really kill us, right? Make or break the P&L. So my schedulers, if they're able to keep overtime under a certain percent, then they get a pretty substantial weekly bonus for that. So then it helps them align their behavior with our business goals. That helps us be successful on the P&L.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know there are some franchise companies now, and we're seeing a growing trend, especially in this tight labor market, to make it easier, to manage your franchise, where they have a recruiting department within the franchisor that they'll go out there and do recruiting for you. They can't tell you who to hire, but they can basically go out there and do recruiting services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would have a lot of questions I'd want to ask and just make sure, because I do, at the end of the day, franchising is hyper local. I think it's possible for the franchisors to help you out, but as the franchise owner, ultimately the buck stops here. You have to be able to go recruit your own employees ultimately.
Yeah.
But that they can help you kind of get the ball rolling for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think I see it as being a growing trend, and how the franchisees play into that. Again, they're your team members. All right. And then, once you get that team member, the benefit of a franchise as you're trying to manage that franchise is that they have all the onboarding and all the training processes set up for you. So it's pretty turnkey once you get that employee.
Yeah. Systems and processes, that's what franchising is really known for. So they're going to kind of reduce the friction and figure out, it's amazing. Even if, any of our listeners ever want to go to like the Uber, you go to the Uber website, it's like, you can, book a car, but if you look at their website, you can become a driver. And if you just kind of click through there, you'll realize how like effortlessly and seamless and like there's no friction. Like you could become an Uber driver. Yeah. It's not super hard, that you can upload your documents and do the background check. It's just very elegant. Yeah. And a lot of franchise systems have really, kind of focused on streamlining the recruiting with the online.
Yeah, recruiting and then certainly getting them on board. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Now, in this tight labor market, we leverage a franchise system. We find that great employee. Now we got to keep them. And that is really on us. That's now us managing the team, leading the team from that standpoint as a business owner. And so let's talk a little bit about how we keep people in this very tight labor market. So I know you're an expert at this. You've got a ton of employees. So what's the first thing with the base, just to stay competitive, to keep them? What's the first thing that you have to have?
I think an easy way to differentiate, and I don't know, this sounds a little bit out there, but employees in general, I feel like are looking for appreciation. So it's not, yes, it's a lot about the compensation and how much per hour, what's my salary, but ultimately people want to feel appreciated and like they're contributing to the company and doing something worthwhile. So I think it's important that your company's, set up so that your employees do feel like, they're making a difference and that they're appreciated. It's kind of, you can motivate people with the carrot or the stick. We kind of grew up with mostly the stick, but it's a little bit more of the carrot these days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people have to know that you care about them from a standpoint that separates you. And it's, I know they have to be a little bit more flexible in what they do with employees. You want to work from home 2 days a week, or you want to, do whatever, that's part of the give and take about how we care.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately we live in a highly technology centric world. So, a lot of our employees are working, somewhat, I don't want to say 24/7, but because they're the phone or the computer, like it's just like for you and me, sometimes it's hard to turn it off. So they are working a lot, or it takes taking up a lot of mind share. So I think it is important to give a lot of flexibility to when and where you work. That's what it's super important, going back to job descriptions and metrics and what your number is and what you're responsible for. Because if you can nail those, then to some extent you don't really care, or you don't have to micromanage, the clocking in and clocking out and some of these other, sick time. Like my employees basically, have as much sick or vacation time as they need. But they're responsible to get their work done.
Sure. And is it important as you look to kind of keep these good team members to always make sure that they're on with what's the purpose of the business? What are we doing from a standpoint? Is that kind of getting them buying into that purpose of the business?
Yeah.
Or the mission?
Yeah. And that going back to that traction book, that's, kind of, step one is defining, what your company's doing, the mission. A lot of times the franchisors will have done that for you kind of at a global level across the system. But I think it's super important as a new franchise owner in your local town to really prioritize that, because again, going back to with franchising, you're getting a proven product or service and a proven sales and marketing strategy. Like the values that the franchisor has been talking about with the existing locations and how they built that, you can't underestimate how important that is actually to your new location that you're starting up, and you want to make sure that that's translating through. And it's kind of, you could think of the word indoctrination in a positive way. Like you want your employees to, basically be indoctrinated with the ethos of your company. You think about the company Junk Luggers as an example, right? There's tons of junk removal companies, but the junk lugger employees just love it because they're really focused on saving the environment, keeping things out of the landfill, things like that.
Sure.
So yeah, just helping them plug into kind of the bigger picture, I think is super important.
Yeah. And of course, you have to have competitive pay. And I think you mentioned earlier, you have to have variable pay that's based on performance, execution, stuff like that. I get that. One of the things that I think a little bit about, and I've been reading on this, is that in today's world, team members want to know or have transparency to what their career path is.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. And what I've really enjoyed is, some of the early on employees that have grown with us, they now, their compensation package is such that they couldn't really go work anywhere else and make the same, because we've been able to grow together, and their compensation's tied to the growth of the company. I've heard some stories about Jimmy John's as an example, and some of their store managers just, they're making six figures because it's like extreme ownership. They, a lot of the Jimmy John store managers have extreme ownership, and they just solve problems. And so the franchise owner just doesn't even have to worry about it.
That's my kind of business, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'd rather pay a little more for those key employees, and then, scale with more locations and make some of those problems go away. Right.
Yeah. And I think it's also an atmosphere. It's a culture, right? Do you do events for your team members? Do you have a bowling night or do anything else like that?
We've been a little light on that the last couple of years, kind of trying to start to get back into the swing of things. So I think that's a fun, that's a good idea, especially for maybe the office team or what have you. Yeah. We have a lot of remote workers, so.
Absolutely. And I think a little bit about in today's world where people just want to contribute. Mm-hmm. And so it's about this idea of having a culture where if somebody comes up with an idea, you listen to the ideas, how something could be better, a process, a system, and stuff like that. I'm certainly you're probably open to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%. It is. I'm just chuckling because, I'm thinking back when we were growing up, everything was kind of a little bit more rough around the edges. But now it's like, oh, that's a really good idea. Tell me more about that. Let's put some more meat on the bone.
Yeah. At Ford, they weren't really interested in kind of new ideas sometimes. So yeah, for sure, at least my background. Perfect. Nat, I think in today's world, as we look at being a business owner, managing our franchise, bottom line is that we got to get the right people and we got to keep them. And a franchise gives us that benefits, right? Of finding the right people. And then once we got those people, then it's on us as business owners, leaders to keep them. And it's so important in today's tight labor market to do it right.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you have to make, people are looking for a home. They're looking for some place to, contribute and feel proud of what they're doing. And, I think also when you're thinking about, depending on what kind of business it is, but a lot of times you have to kind of always be have your radar up for good employees or be recruiting. And then, once you create that culture, then, you'll start to get word of mouth employees. Your employees will, tell other people and your clients will tell, and then all of a sudden it starts to all kind of go good.
Now, we got to keep all this in mind when we start our college moving business, right? Moving these kids out of dorms. I'm telling you, I like the Zippy U idea. I think you and I, we got to look at this. So we'll have to talk about that later. Sound good?
Sounds good, Pete. Have an awesome day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the Hire Yourself podcast. For more resources, check out our website at hireyourself.com. And remember to subscribe to this podcast to receive each episode. Please leave us a rating, and we'd love to hear your feedback or suggestions for topics.